Hi everyone, I'm back with another video. Happy to be here. Day 9. I'm going to try to flow into my verbal pocket as quickly as possible. We'll see how long that takes. I'm fresh off of like a 20-minute power nap, and when that happens, the hour or so after my power nap, I am like the most energetic, pure, and clean-minded out of my whole day. I love my power naps for some reason. They are, not for some reason, for many reasons. They are a staple of my productivity workflow. Like they are almost a necessity, especially on days where I am doing a lot and overwhelmed. It's a double-edged sword though. I do work from home and my bed is like 5 feet that way. The temptation to take a nap is ever so compelling because all I have to do is lift my feet up and walk 5 feet over there. I'm battling with that. I'm battling with not taking advantage of the fact that I can power nap. It's a struggle. However, it's a noble and effortful struggle that I will continue to battle. But I am grateful that I have the capacity to do that. When I was doing my full-time job, I didn't have the capacity to sleep on the job and therefore was less productive in the afternoon segment of my working day. I want to talk about two things in this video. Two things that are quite topical to me right now and my situation. One is how I approach content and YouTube. And I've gotten a lot of questions actually in my DMs, and I just put up a story asking you guys what I should talk about. And a few of you guys mentioned content and how I feel about content and my YouTube journey in specific. I actually just had a coffee chat with someone yesterday asking about my approach to content. I've had many chats with people about content, and I am in an interesting era of content. I'm in a mature phase of my content where I feel like I've kind of been around the block a little bit with my content and creation as a whole for the internet. To a degree, I kind of understand, I think, a little bit of the social media world. But scratching the tip of the iceberg here. It's so vast. It's like saying that you have read every single book. It's not possible. But like if you're an avid reader, you can be quite knowledgeable on certain topics. And that's kind of how I feel about content. Like obviously I don't know the entirety of the content world, and I never will, and no one ever will. But again, I've been around the block. I've done it professionally and I've done it personally. My approach to this YouTube thing right now is stemming from an experienced position. I am in a quantity first mindset for the sake of getting better at the craft. That's what I'm doing with YouTube. I'm not throwing out quality, but I am prioritizing the consistency and the mechanisms that go into publishing the video that you're watching right now. For beginners, some of my biggest advice for beginners when it comes to creating content is a lot of times it's so easy to focus on steps 2, 3, 4, and 5. A lot of times with beginners, they focus on like steps beyond where they actually need to be. And a lot of the advice that I give to beginners is focus on your fundamentals and the mechanisms that aid you in actually publishing content. The chat that I was having yesterday about content with the girl for coffee, she was very focused on nailing down her niche. And you know, she's been watching a lot of videos on how to find your niche and how to curate your target audience and what cameras are best to use, how to present best on camera, and you know, how to talk elegantly, all of that stuff. That's all okay to care about in the back of your mind. But before you've published your first video, before you've embarked on your content journey, and that's what it is, it's a journey, and you embark on it. It's a mindset shift, it's a lifestyle shift. You can't really do this for fun on the side if you're trying to get somewhere with content. Yeah, you can post once a week the food that you make on your social media, but that's not going to actually accrue a following or grow a community. If you want to take it seriously, you're going to embark on a journey, and you need to work before you think about the fundamentals, before you think about what niche you're going to talk about. You need to hammer down the processes that allow you to have your videos seen by the world. And what I mean by that is you need to get the reps in. You need to figure out how much time it takes to actually make a video. And you need to get that total number down as much as possible. So for example, this YouTube thing that I'm doing, I'm on day 9 right now. This video in total will probably take me about an hour and a half from ideation, filming, editing, uploading to YouTube, creating the thumbnail, optimizing the title, and then laying out the chapter markers. Probably an hour and a half total, maybe a little bit more. Compare that to day 1. It took me upwards of 4.5 to 5 hours, maybe even 6 hours to do all of those mechanisms in total. I have cut down my time to publish in a matter of 8 days significantly. And that's only because I did it every single day for the last couple days. I've learned shortcuts. I've learned the ins and outs of how to get things done faster. I've learned the minutia of what it takes to create content. It's kind of like you're brute forcing your way into learning, right? The only way to learn content creation is to create content. And the fastest way and the most productive and efficient way I find, and I would recommend, is get as much done as you possibly can, because essentially you're just getting reps done. You're learning every single day. I'm trying to learn as fast as I can, just for the sake of it, because I have the energy, I have the time, and I want to do that. This is interesting. I don't know. I'm hard-pressed to give content advice, in all honesty. I am hard-pressed. It's just when people ask me for my advice, I tell them what I'm doing, and that's my approach. I'm learning how to dial in the mechanisms to create content. And then when I have that dialed in and I'm comfortable with my foundation of creating content, then I can worry about really targeting my audience properly and nailing down my niche and creating beautiful artwork and telling amazing stories and all that. But you have to build the foundation before you can get to that point, if that is your goal, which it is for me. That's exactly what I did with the Instagram content. I created a foundation. I posted almost every single day, just strictly motivational content that was kind of like recycled from the internet. I did that for like about 2 months. And only after about 2 months did I see any degree of success. And by that point, I had already produced like 50 or 60 videos. So when I wanted to jump into the world of creating stuff that it was like integral to who I was, and I wanted to like I wanted to like convey my artistry and all that stuff, I already had the foundations and the mechanisms to do it quickly. That's kind of, it's an interesting point that we're in the world, because that's not necessarily the healthiest way to go about creating art, obviously. Art isn't about optimization. Art isn't about the most efficient process to create the art. However, creating content for social media it's a new modern age hybrid of art and business. I actually love that, and I love saying that. That's such a cool way to think about it. So it requires a huge degree of optimization and efficiency in processes and systems. And if you couple that with, a boatload of creativity, you can get an amazing product, and you can build an amazing community, and you can build an amazing audience. YouTube, Instagram, kind of TikTok, social media as a whole, it is artistry mixed with business. Those are the creators that do super well. And you got to treat them both as such. You got to foster the creativity and artistry side, and you have to foster the business side. This is what I'm doing right now. I am fostering the business side, and I'm actually neglecting a little bit of the creativity side, because I have many other outlets that I can work on the creativity side. But when it comes to this YouTube stuff, I'm just trying to learn the mechanisms and the business aspect of creating these videos, which is why some of them are, may feel, I don't know how you guys are perceiving them, but from my perception, some of them are a little bit rushed. Some of them are a little bit messy relative to my standards. And some of them I am not like the most enthusiastic about, but that's okay because it's serving a broader purpose and it's part of a larger mechanism. That mechanism being, I'm building my foundation here. I'm learning how to make videos efficiently so that when it comes to getting into the nitty-gritty of my actual art, it's a breeze for me. And there's kind of just that fluid translation of my thoughts into tangible product that you see on screen. It's an interesting thing. I'm not alone in this thinking. There's a lot of other creators who share this sentiment, and this is my advice to someone just starting out on YouTube or Instagram. This is my advice right now. Build your foundations, brute force your way through it. The only way to learn is by doing. And if you try to plan before you start doing, things are going to be astronomically more difficult than they need to be. Whew, all right. That was a long spiel. I'm happy about that, though. It's a complex topic, and I like. It's a complex topic, and it's also an iffy topic because I'm hesitant to tell people what to do in the content world. I am so opposed to a lot of the social media gurus telling people how to grow followings and all that stuff. Yeah. Take what you want from that. I'm not saying to do anything. That's just my approach, and I have some experience, and that's my advice to you. Books. People also want me to talk about books a lot now lately, which is fun. That's cool. I think books are such a demonized to a degree in a large segment of the population. They're a demonized information pool. Demonized to the degree that they aren't cool, they're slow, they're archaic, they're outdated. That's what I mean when I say demonized, and I definitely fell into that category for a majority of my life. I've discussed previously that I've always had a very, very, very negative relationship to books because of the way that I was exposed to them via the American schooling system. And I guess just in my case particularly, and given my temperament as a child, I was always averse to reading because the only contexts in which I would read would be because I was forced to read by the teacher. He or she would tell me that, you have to read chapters 1 through 4 by Tuesday, and you're going to have a quiz on it. And that's not necessarily how I learned the best. And especially thinking back, that wasn't how I learned the best. I wanted to learn the things that I want to learn. And being told what to do doesn't sit well with me. And my only exposure to books as a kid was the books that were being forced down my throat. And I grew up with that sentiment, and that sentiment fostered into a little bit of my adulthood and my younger teen years and older teen years. I always had this kind of resentment towards books because I always looked at them as purely academic strong-arming. I don't know if that makes sense, but I never had a chance to see the value in them as a kid. I'll put it short. I never had a chance to see the value in books as a kid. So the past couple year or so, maybe 2 years, I got into audiobooks. Audiobooks was my foot in the door with actual books because, well, if you want to trace that back even farther, podcasting. I got into podcasting, was listening to a lot of Jordan Peterson, and I was getting used to putting my headphones in and not listening to music, but listening to words. And I listened to hundreds of hours of podcasting, which gave me the confidence to dive into the world of audiobooks. And I'm so grateful that happened, and that transition was fairly seamless for me. What did I do? The bridge for me was Jordan Peterson podcast to the Jordan Peterson book, Jordan Peterson audiobook. That was the bridge for me. And subsequently after that was the Atomic Habits audiobook. And then subsequently after that was the Alex Hormozi $100 million offers book, audiobook. So I read three audiobooks before I had the confidence to dive into real books. My first real book was Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. I was walking home from a therapy session, oddly enough, and, I'm not religious, but by the fate of God, I stopped walking for some reason, and I looked to my right, and I was compelled to walk into this bookstore, just for fun. I didn't really know what to expect. I had never been in a bookstore before in my whole life in any sort of serious context. I walked in the bookstore and I was browsing for about a minute, and my browsing led me to Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. It had been in the back of my mind. It had been on my radar. I had been listening to the Daily Stoic on Instagram. I was aware of the fact that Meditations by Marcus Aurelius was and could be a life-changing book, and it was packed with knowledge and wisdom. Bought the book, was ecstatic about buying the book. It was very interesting, and it's very new to me to hold something physical in my hands that could occupy my attention. It was a weird thing, like this book with pages in it. I'm going to be staring at it for hours on end. It was a weird feeling, and it still is a weird feeling for me because books are a new concept to me, in all honesty. Read that book, was quite difficult to read because it's translated from Latin actually into English, and it's old English. It's quite interesting, and it's a cool read, but it does take sometimes I have to read paragraphs like 2 or 3 times to actually understand it. And a book like Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, I really want to understand it. Books are great. Where am I going with this? Books are fantastic. Books are a stark contrast from Instagram, TikTok. They act as the antithesis to the fast-paced, passive consumption models of knowledge acquisition these days. And that's something also I like to talk about, is passive versus active knowledge acquisition. Active knowledge acquisition is far richer and far more potent than passive knowledge acquisition. Active acquisition being books. I guess you can maybe incorporate podcasts, slightly incorporate YouTube videos. If the YouTube video is inherently not trying to thrust the thoughts into your mind. I think a good example of that is like a highly edited YouTube video with like crazy motion graphics, crazy sound effects. They're trying to jam things into your mind. But a podcast on YouTube with zero editing, zero cuts, nothing, is, I think, more of an active knowledge acquisition. In the other camp, we have the passive knowledge acquisition. Instagram, swiping, TikTok, swiping. That's the candy. That's the fast food of knowledge. You're doing zero work in order to acquire the knowledge that you're being bestowed. You're not working for it other than a little thumb flick. You're doing nothing. None of that stuff really sits in your brain. And it all kind of just moshes into one gloopy, like, nonsense of information that you can't decipher. Books are great. Books are cool. And I would love it if I could, like, just having this conversation with you, get you into just starting to consider reading a book. That's exactly what it is. I had to get in a mindset that, like, I am considering reading a book. That's the first, like, phase that needs to happen if you are book averse. You need to consider, like, your mind being open to the idea of reading a book. And that's the first. Then the dominoes topple from there. You'll eventually get into it. All right, that's a long spiel on books. Last thing I want to say on that is I just bought another book. It should actually be arriving like any minute now. It's from Amazon. Same day shipping, which is freaking insane. I bought it this morning and it's going to be here by 10 p.m. The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. I felt compelled to buy that book. It's been on my radar for quite a while. I've dove into the world a little bit of Tim Ferriss. I don't know too much, but obviously I'll be fully enveloped in his book. It's always interested me, and I've heard really great things. And the title is incredibly relevant to where I'm at right now. I would love to be able to spend 4 efficient hours during my work week and achieve what people achieve in 40 hours. I don't know if that's what the book is about. I highly doubt it, actually, but that's what's being sold, and I've bought it. And I will tell you how it goes. I guess now that we're just into talk about the books that I've read. Just finished, front to back, The Psychology of Money. Really, really, really good read. Written by Morgan Housel. He's a modern writer, and which is why I really appreciated him. He's been on all the cool podcasts like Chris Williamson. I think he's been on Diary of a CEO. He's with the modern marketing, and he speaks as if he is in the know, right? He's not some sort of ancient author. So his dialogue and his verbiage chosen is easy to read, and I really appreciated that. And it's modern and contemporary. It was written, I think, in 2020. And he gives great mindset shifts and approaches to looking at money. He doesn't teach you financial skills necessarily, but he just frames money, investing, saving, all of the above in digestible concepts. And he kind of actually shatters some critical notions that a lot of people have about investing and financing and all of that stuff. Critically acclaimed book, highly regarded book, and I highly recommend it personally. What other books am I reading? That's about it. I started a book called Information Overload, how to pay attention in the age of focus. I mean, in the age of information abundance or something. It's a little bit sterile for my liking. It's a little bit textbooky. I'm going to see if I can push through it. I made it to chapter 2.5 or something. I'll let you know how that goes. Not huge hopes for that. It was gifted to me by a close friend of mine, which I really appreciate. It's just a little bit sterile for me. All right, that's enough. Had a really good time talking. I hope this background looks kind of presentable. I hope. I'm not sure. I really appreciate you watching, and I really appreciate you sharing. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.